The best start to your day. It's the AM Show.
Okay, so the Reserve Bank has announced tighter mortgage lending standards from October the 1st, the second lowest in history. So what does all this mean for you, and why shouldn't you panic? We'll try and make you not panic. Joining us now is Property Apprentice founder and CFO, Debbie Roberts. G'day, Debbie.
Good morning.
Nice to see you.
Thank you.
Should we panic?
No, I don't think so. I mean, at the moment, they're just looking at implementing some changes. So they've sort of put it out there that these are some of the things that they're considering. And the reason that the Reserve Bank does what they do is to help reduce risk in the property market as well as in the economy.
And are we facing undue risk at the moment?
Yeah, I think there's particularly one sector in the property market I think is at quite high risk. You know, we've got one sector in the market where both the government and the Reserve Bank seem to be driving people towards, and that would be the new build market.
Yes.
You know, so that's increasing demand.
It's on fire, isn't it?
It totally is.
I've got a friend involved in this, and it's going gangbusters.
But some developers have sold out of all of their stock for 2 years in advance. You know, some of them haven't even broken ground on those developments and they've already sold them. So pushing...
That's dangerous too.
Well, hello, yes it is. So we're pushing people into that area, and when there's high demand for one sector, especially in the new build sector, that increases prices there. We've got building shortage. We're getting onto a completely different subject here than what we'd planned on talking about.
We can go back to this one, but I know what you're saying though.
Yeah, so I think, you know, when there's new build increases in values, that drags the rest of the property market up with it. So it's going to be really interesting to see what the Reserve Bank says with regards to new builds. One of the things that they're looking at introducing is reducing what they call high-risk lending. So particularly for first home buyers, we've had a lot of first home buyers that have been borrowing above 80%.
Like the old days, you mean?
Yeah, exactly. Yep. So, and the risk there is that if we have a price correction, then those people could end up with negative equity, which is not good for the economy, and it's certainly not good for the individuals.
No.
Should you view then, you know, the Reserve Bank as like a strict parent that has your best interests at heart? And while it might be annoying, you have to accept that it's probably the right thing.
Yeah, I think a lot of the things that they do is basically to protect you from yourself. You know, so
tough love.
Yeah, well, one of the things that they're looking at doing is introducing an interest rate floor, which means when the banks calculate the lending criteria based on your provable income, they'll all have a minimum interest rate that they need to work off, which is obviously going to be higher than what we've currently got.
A lot of these rules that will come into play, the banks do them unofficially anyway, don't they?
They do. And I think the banks have been really good at doing that. You know, I mean, even back in December when the Reserve Bank first announced that they were going to reimpose restrictions, the banks imposed them straight away.
Exactly.
Some of the banks are already using debt-to-income ratios. You know, so the banks are actually taking that responsible lending code seriously, which is great.
Quick question for you before you go, when you're just touching on building and supplies and stuff. Have you noticed or heard about even builders quitting or, you know, going to another profession because the burnout, the expectation and pressure at the moment is so intense? Yeah,
there's massive demand on builders and building companies, and, you know, they are working long hours. We don't have enough builders. And then, you know, when the bubble's in operation in Australia, builders get paid more over there.
They do.
So, you know, we could potentially lose builders. They're in the middle of a building boom in Aussie as well. So, yeah, it's a knife edge. I tell you what, I'm glad I'm not in the Reserve Bank. I wouldn't want to be making these decisions.
Not only builders, it's building supplies as well. Short of too.
Yes, exactly. Which is
and expensive.
Can't build the houses without supplies.
And something else which I think is important to remember, if you are worried about these changes that the Reserve Bank's looking at bringing in, don't panic, because they're designed to slow down the demand side of that supply-demand thing.
So if you are worried, get in touch with Debbie. Yes, that's the way to go.
Help.
How could you go? Property Apprentice, founder and CFO, Debbie Roberts. Appreciate your time as always.